right, let's see how the stream is doing. All right. Let's see how this. Are you Rambly? Okay, let's see. Come on, Ramble. The Ramble. The Ramble. That doesn't look good. Ramble. What's that from? Facebook. Is Twitter Twittery? I don't think Facebook is doing so well. I don't think Facebook is doing so well. Facebook is doing good. There we go. All right, I think we're back. Facebook is doing good. All right, we're back. All right, sorry about that. OBS kind of broke. Let's pick it up where we were.
יאמרו אליה, התלכי עם האיש הזה, ותאמר אלך. וישלחו את רבקה אחותם ואת מניקתה, ואת עבד אברהם ואת אנשיו. ויברכו את רבקה ויאמרו לה, אחותנו את, היי לאלפי רבבה, וירש זרעך את שער שונאיו. ותקום רבקה ונערותיה ותרכבנה על הגמלים, ותלכנה אחרי האיש, ויקח העבד את רבקה וילך. ויצחק בא מבו, באר לחי רועי, והוא יושב בארץ הנגב. ויצא יצחק לסוח בשדה לפנות ערב, ויישא עיניו וירא, והנה גמלים באים. ותישא רבקה את עיניה, ותרא את יצחק, ותיפול מעל הגמל. ותאמר אל העבד, מי האיש הלזה ההולך בשדה לקראתנו? ויאמר העבד, הוא אדוני. ותיקח הצעיף ותתכס. ויספר העבד ליצחק את כל הדברים אשר עשה. ויביאה יצחק האוהלה, שרה אמו, ויקח את רבקה, ותהי לו לאישה, ויאהביה, וינחם יצחק אחרי אמו.
Okay. That was just letting the computer do the reading. Thanks to that guy who did that work. P-Thaggy's in the house. Stevus says, oh, he's saying hi to Miss 320. Probably won't be here long, she says, but listen for a bit. And Truett's in the house. So, slightly new format for those that just arrived. So now what we're going to do is take, of all those verses, there are 10 word stems that we've not seen before. So I'm going to cover all 10, and then we're going to go through the breakdown. So, Keli, that's an article, a utensil, a vessel. There's 325 examples in the Old Testament. And it's like an implement. or a thingamabob, but with like utility. Beged, that's apparel. There's 217 examples in the Law and Prophets. Garments or clothes. Migdana, that's a choice or an excellent thing. There's only 4 examples. I looked at studylight.org and it says it's like a sparkly precious. So I'm going to say it's top bling. The other 3 usages are used like this, so I would agree it's good things, attractive things. Achar, that's to remain behind or tarry. There's 17 examples of the Old Testament, basically to delay. Study Light says it's like a man left outside, so kind of like in the dust, left out of the fun. Rebaba, multitude or myriad, 10,000 it can mean. Comes from the word rabab, which we've already seen, which is to be or become many or much. Sane, that's to hate. 147 examples in the Old Testament. It's always translated as hate. And when that happens, I like to look up the English. And we know this, but just to be sure. Extreme dislike or extreme hostility. Rakav, that's to mount and ride or to ride. There's 78 examples in the Old Testament. Pretty straightforward. Suach, that's maybe to mean muse or meditate. Nobody knows. I'm just going to say chillax. I could not find much on that word. It's only used like once. Halaze, that's this. There's only 2 examples in the Old Testament. Studylight.org shows that there's a connotation of possibly sneering. So in context, I wonder if there's a little bit of humor here. Maybe he was posing or preening. And she's like, who's that? Looking all high and mighty coming over to see who's this. Saif, it's a wrapper or a shawl or a veil. There's only 3 examples in the Old Testament. It says it means a cover. There's very little to go on, but it does use to cover the face, whatever it is. So in prior weeks, what I've kind of been doing is sneaking in my own translation by reading the English, reading the Hebrew, breaking down the new words, and then showing you what it all puts together as. But now it's going to be kind of more blatantly obvious that I'm just doing my own translation. But let me present it. But it's still the same thing. It's like I'm doing it after really like digging through everything. Hopefully that makes sense. So, verse 50. Laban and Bethuel answered, saying, the matter is from Ahiah. We can't say one way or the other, good or bad. Verse 51. Check it. Take this here Rebekah and go and let her marry Isaac as Ahiah said. So our story so far would be Isaac got a wife from the family back in Nahor by a servant telling the family back home a God thing story, plus flash some bling, and they were like, yeah. 52. It didn't it up. When Abraham's servant heard their reply, he bowed down to the ground to Ahiah. The stuff in the camel's bags finally was revealed. Bling, bling. Jewels, gold, badass clothing. He gave them to Rebekah and her brother and her mother. Not her dad. Notice her dad is kind of not in this story. That happens quite a lot in these old chapters. So Isaac, set to inherit the estate, bought a mail-ordered Rebekah from back in Nahor. So she's a mail-order bride, essentially, if you really think about it. He and his posse dinnered and crashed and got up and said, send me back. Verse 55. Her brother and her mother said, let her stay at least 10 days and then go. So the pickup was shocking to the Nahors, the Nahorians. You know, they were like, well, we got to do what God says, but man, give us 10 days at least. So he and his posse did, let's see. He said, don't hold me up. Ahiah has my back. Send me back to Abraham. They're like, we'll make the victim or the victor, however you want to see it, say how long to tarry. They're like, we may need to spend some time talking her into this. Pythagoras' sticker is actually very well fitting to tonight's text. Well job. Well done. So the pickup was shocking to the Nahors, but after the bling and the God thing story, they were like, we might need 10 days to talk her into it. Let's see. So they're like, you got to talk to her. So they called in Rebecca and gave her the sales pitch, and they braced. And she's like, okay, done. So they got a mail order Rebecca from back in Nahor with bling and a God thing story. Rebecca was fully bought in. Notice she jumps in. She's like, oh, I'll go. Yeah, no problem. Maybe it was an uncool household. So they launched Sister Rebecca, her nurse, and Abraham's servant and posse. That's this verse. Sorry, I forgot to. So they launched her. Verse 60. They blessed Rebekah, saying, have thousands of myriads, and may your descendants possess the gates of those who hate them. So Rebekah's family sent her down from Nahor to marry Isaac and help conquer the enemy that they were somehow more aware of than even the reader so far should be. You catch that? That'll be a discussion question. Rebekah and her servants got up and rode the camels, following the man. So the servant took Rebekah and left. Take her and go, as Russell Peters says. Take her and go. Isaac came from going to Bir Laharoi as he was living in Negev. Partying as a bachelor, I wonder? Like, what's he doing? He's kind of striking out on his own, but then he comes back and hangs out. He went out to show his gains to anyone wanting to see and looked up to see the camels returning. You think he kind of knew? He's like, let me just hang out here like I always do. Probably shirtless, probably flexing, probably all swole from the morning's workout. Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac and got off the camel. 65. Because she had said to the servant, who's that coming this way? No way. And she had said, it's literally your fiance. And he had said, it's literally your fiance. So she covered up her face. She's like, oops. The servant told Isaac the update, basically, all that had happened. And the last verse of the night before the discussion questions. She was brought in the tent of his mother Sarah by Isaac, and he snagged Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her like a family member type love. There's a couple words for love. And was comforted since his mom's passing. So, our story so far. After the water-based reset, remember, no demon half-breeds, no murder, no blood drinking. Among Japhethites, Shemite Abraham moved to Philistine, had Ishmael with an Egyptian, and blessed the world by almost sacrificing Harion's son Isaac, who ended up being an anchor as they brought Rebekah down to Canaan from Haran to marry him. So I'm coming to the notion that Abraham didn't go back to avoid like an argument. I bet a lot of people question him going down. So he sent bling instead, the ultimate argument. So they had to stare at the wealth and make a call. You know, like, you in on this or not? They were easy to convince in some ways. So maybe they knew some of the plan. And this was just the proof that it's working. And they're like, all right, we'll let Rebekah go. Do you want to? She's like, yes. Yes, I so want in on that. So I'm going to have some discussion questions. You know, I've changed the format slightly, but let me see where Black Yoda is. Feels like I don't know what I was going to say. Feels like something. Let's see. Yoda. Where you be? don't see him. So we'll start our discussion questions without our co-host. Maybe he needs, look, if anyone's earned a break, it's him. All right, so put in the chat or hop in. Let's see. Let me put the Jitsi link anyway, because we need one. Jitsi. All right. So here's our discussion questions. But we can put our discussion in the chat or in the thing, and who knows where Black Yoda is, but well, hopefully he's doing well. So was he preening? Like, I've always got the impression, and you see this elsewhere, as the story repeats and the next gen meet each other, there's definitely some showing off. Like when Jacob takes the cover of the well off, he does a feat of strength. So that's question one. Was Isaac kind of showing off? He's like, I bet you that caravan's the one. Let me make sure I'm back in town for the arrival. I'll just be out kind of like, well, you get my point. Any comments about how they were sold? It's a God thing story. He's like, oh, you'd never believe it. I had this camel story. And Rebecca said exactly what I imagined. And then he flashed some bling, but did they know what was, did they know what Abraham was setting out to do? Did he even know? So where's the dad in all this? There's Laban, her brother. A lot of times in these stories, the dad is quiet or gone. Maybe he's dead already. Do you agree that Rebecca is a mail order bride? I think that's pretty easy to prove. Is Isaac an anchor baby that he's like bringing a wife from back home as they infiltrate, not invade? Why did they pray about the enemies losing? How did they know? Did the servant say, yeah, they're so bad, it's a lot of fighting? Or did they know there was a long-term plan, even before it's been told to the reader? Why was Isaac hanging out where he was, not near Abraham? And he decided to live in his mom's old room. It's a little Norman Bates, isn't it? Isn't it a little weird? Those are my commentary questions. If we want, I've prepared, I've actually got prepared, chapter 25, 1 through 11, if we want. Let me just pause for a second and check the other canals. Facebook. How's Facebook doing? Facebook, are you okay? How's Facebook doing? Yeah, it's all right. How's Rumble doing? Let's check out Rumble. Oh, I see Thaggy's in the house. P-Thaggy, short for Pythagoras, or Professor Thaggy.
What's up, G-Force?
With 7 Zark 7, or depends on where you lived, which package you got on G-Force.
G-Money.
Word. So did you notice, I'm sure you did, the new format? It's a lot faster, I think.
Oh, yeah, I liked it a lot better, too.
Cool.
It's, you can see the words going by as he reads them.
Mm-hmm. I liked, back in chapter 1, 2, and 3, I liked really chewing on each little bit of words and really going deep in them. But we've seen all these words now, so there's not a lot of new words.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of like the old format. And if I ever did go back to something as dense as chapter 1, I'd probably use this. Like you said, you can see the words a lot easier.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. It's a new technology. It's a
Mm-hmm.
level up.
That's right. We took it up a notch.
So I'm 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 squinting my eyes going back over the text. I was curious about the same thing as far as whether the in-laws were in on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And when the servant tells them, "Look, I come from the Lord," however that translated,
Right.
I come from the Lord. Which did you find that in the text? Which Hebrew word is that?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Tetragrammatron. Let me check.
Yeah, that's to check. Because I thought that was a little bit vague. Um, but it does get me closer to my question from all those weeks ago. Like, what was the nature or manner of the religion? How was it practiced? Because it says that the servant bowed down and worshiped the Lord. So there is some sort of precedent for like bowing or kneeling in prayer, like long before the Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
long before Muhammad. There's this whole bowing thing and part of your worship. But if the reason I want you to find it is because if Laban and Bethuel were already familiar with who this Lord is, that would answer the question why they were so easy to convince. It may not have been the bling at all.
Right. Exactly.
They put their hands up and they say, "Well, if you come from the Lord, as you say you do, then we can't speak one way or another. Like, well, I can't stand in your way. You're on a mission from the Lord."
Let me be cynical for a second. Husband and wife, or brother and mom, whoever's the decision makers, almost like look at each other sideways and go, "Yeah, we're both thinking the same thing." Well, we love Rebecca, but we love the bling. If God says so, that's the cynical
Sure,
interpretation.
sure. And why was Rebecca so eager to leave? Well, there I think either she loved the plan, like she, kind of like she had that forthright spirit in the way that Isaac was okay with the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, "Yeah, I agree to your plan." Was it that same spirit? Are they soulmates because they have that giving spirit? Or rather, I think it was this. She was a virgin. Okay, wink.
Mm-hmm.
She was thirsty. She's like, "Hey, someone wants to marry me. I want to get the hell out of here."
Right. That's what I was thinking. These people are
she,
boring.
she's like, "I want to have sex. Come on, I feel so repressed. I'm horny."
Right.
It's just like I don't think there's a lot to really ponder in why she wanted to leave. I mean, you spend your whole time with goats and camels and watering them every day. It gets kind of dull. Every day is the same. But if someone wants to set you up at the head of your house or your tent, I guess, and
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have people answering to you and making decisions and wearing fine garments, she's like, "Sign me up for that."
Correct. So to answer your question, the 3 or 4 times that Yahweh is mentioned from verse 50 on, like when they answered, they are using uh, the proper name of God in Israel, Jehovah or Yahweh,
Okay.
according to the.
So there you go. Once again, Genesis is skipping over a lot of important details, but it makes it seem like this family was already aware of the Lord
Yep.
and perhaps the plan. and perhaps they too worshiped the Lord. I don't know.
I wonder, so if we read in Hebrews, and I think you or Duppy have mentioned this, and I haven't read Hebrews in a while, but I vaguely remember it talks about how Abraham came out of paganism. So maybe he comes out of paganism, whatever that is, and says, I found a new different way. I'm heading out. If I do well, I'll send back a train of camels. You'll know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like,
Yeah, we
all
were
right, there
wondering.
goes crazy Abraham. You know?
Right, because there was some extra biblical sources that said that his father was the high priest back in wherever, Chaldea,
Yeah.
or one of the high priests, and was like the custodian of the idols. He was like the caretaker of the idols, and that
Yeah.
they were in his charge.
Right.
And they would burn heretics and stuff. That's why they had this huge furnace,
Maybe that's part of
Uh,
why Abraham had to get out of town.
yeah, but one wonders if the extended family were also servants of the Lord,
Right.
the Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of like if you the path of least resistance is that they were faithful.
Right.
That would make the reading so much smoother, and there's no obstacles.
Right. Yeah, they pray for success of Rebecca over the Canaanites, basically.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe that was what everyone said to their daughter when
Right.
when a woman leaves her home. Maybe that's just a common expression.
It's a fair
Yes,
point. Yeah. If she was going out of
kind
town.
of like the
Yeah.
Conan thing, like,
Right.
oh, you're going on adventure. Oh, you're leaving us. Maybe not see you for a while. Well, go forth and vanquish your enemies. Ride them out before you amongst the wailing of their women.
Right. Crush the enemy.
Let the sound of women grieving, yeah, just like ring in your ears. Hear the lamentations and smile. It's like,
Right.
whoa, that's just a farewell. That's just a common expression for saying goodbye.
It's believable. A little bit of both. All right, so I think we kind of both got a few questions answered that had been raised over the last few chapters and kind of came down likely in about the same estimation, sounds like. Any other points?
Well, I said a lot of maybes.
Yeah, but right. I don't think it's conclusive either.
I was just saying a lot of maybes. I don't feel like I have satisfactory answers.
Yeah, I'm just trending to, or at least starting to contemplate in a way I had not before, that they may be more aware than first reading would have shown. Like when you just speed read this stuff, I didn't catch that. That they might have been aware.
Yeah. And I found a really cool website today.
Yeah.
It's not just a Bible atlas. It goes beyond. It tells you the recent debates about the recent debates. Here it is. It's called openbible.info. You can look at it alphabetically or from the books of the Bible that the places are mentioned.
Cool.
And
This is
so I was
fantastic.
digging around there and come to find out where the servant was sent to go. Yeah, where the servant was sent to go and find a wife is, as we said, it was right around the Euphrates, meaning not back in Chaldea, unless unless that whole region of Mesopotamia was somehow Chaldean.
Right. So he's up in. That's the picture that I'm seeing. If I clicked on it right,
So if you look
it's
at like
yeah.
Aram, if you go to the A's and scroll down to Aram,
One of us, maybe both, is having internet
where
connectivity
he was sent.
issues. I suspect because my playbacks are smooth, you may be having a little bit of lag.
And you look at Aram.
Hopefully it's better now.
Is there
Aram, right
a
here.
lag?
Yeah, there was a bit of a lag. I don't know where it's from.
Okay.
Wadi. That's an oasis.
It's oh yeah, you got it on screen. Good. And then if
I'm going to
you click
reload
on one
my.
of them, it's a nice little tool.
All right. I reloaded. Let me see if the audio's better.
Well, if it persists, I've been on a different device.
Yeah, would you mind trying either reloading or a different device? Either one or both?
Yeah, I'll do that. Knock below.
We are waiting for P-Thaggy to re-arrive. I'm so sleepy. If you're wondering how I can just sit here phased out, it's because I'm sleepy. Like I always am. Testing.
Okay, I'm on a different device.
Sweet. I am sharing my screen finally.
So we both found cool websites today.
Yep.
New toys to play with.
So this is. You were telling me to click on a bunch of stuff, but I couldn't quite hear it. What was the suggestions?
Well, so when they deployed up north to where the family is, they give a specific locale, and that one is definitely toward the Euphrates in the north. And then when Rebecca arrives in the Negev, in this really long name, that's where they place it. Apparently, I mean, I don't know if they put the hypothesis before the archaeology, but it squares up pretty well. It seems legit where
Yep.
these places truly are, which takes the whole Chaldea out of the picture. we've been kind of scratching our chins on that one, like when they talk about going back to the family and stuff, or even as Duppy was saying, when they left Chaldea, were they already sort of up there along the Euphrates, or
Right.
are we thinking in sort of social studies or geography class, or like real outdated textbook stuff, like, oh no, they came from the mouth of the Euphrates
Right.
or the Delta, right? It's like where we consider Chaldea and the city of Ur.
Well,
Remember, Duffy was saying Ur could be a couple different places.
right. The two I've carried with me is down here. That's the classic, current, old school classic. But Urkesh up here, or maybe like here, somewhere around here. So this is kind of where I started, but Duppy is kind of. I'm more convinced of what Duppy says than Duppy is, because I tend to lock
cool.
in while he stays a little skeptical.
Cool.
So I'm up here now. He's pretty much convinced me that Urkesh is more like up here, or that is pretty much Urkesh.
Yeah.
And I preached on, and I only do this like once every year-ish, on Kedorlaomer and the kidnapping of Lot and the rescue of Lot. And I just listed both as possible, and I said, let's just say from the east. And then I was clear on where Haran was. And just so happened to have kind of a local Reformed theology celeb in the house. He didn't correct me afterwards, so I kind of think most people are not 100% set that we know exactly where Ur was.
Yeah. Who was the?
His name's Jordan Stone. He's an assistant professor at Reformed Theological Seminary around here, RTS.
Oh, I see. So he has credentials. He had a lanyard with credentials.
Yeah. In the tiny little obscure circles of the slice of church that I hang out in, he's kind of well known.
Nice.
So my worship leader friend goes, "Hey, don't look now, but you're about to preach to Jordan Stone." I'm like, "No, yeah, right." He's like, "No, really." And I'm like, "Why would you do that to me?" He's like, "So you don't get surprised halfway through and freak out." I did not freak out.
Good job.
Well, theoretically, if I'm presenting God's word, I should be neither more nor less freaked out, depending on, the celebrity of who's there. But it still comes at you a little bit. You're like, "Oh, that guy's popular." Any other points before I run through my discussion questions that I carved out almost like a study guide?
No, go ahead. I'll go on mute.
Well, you heard me say them a minute ago, and I've kind of already registered my opinion, so you'll have to stand in front of each question and you can say, "Not interested." But was Isaac kind of showing off? I think he knew the train was coming.
Was he peacocking?
I think so.
Well, but where did you get that from?
Well, really kind of two places. One, it happens generationally. For sure, Jacob shows off to, what's her name? Rachel? Yeah, Rachel, I think. Yeah. Like he lifts the cover of a well-off that normally takes like 4 dudes. He's like, I got this. Now, that's just an echo in the future, but so many of these stories of these generations repeat. And then there's just that word that's only used like 3 times, but it has this connotation of sneering. I think she mistook Isaac and was rolling her eyes, and the servant's like, "That's Isaac." And she's like, "Oh." That's how I read the story. I know it's not ironclad, but that's how it came across to me. So that's my theory.
It's bronze clad.
It's bronze
What's
clad.
up, that man?
Hey guys.
Hey,
So which part did you hear that you just got off the phone, Duffy?
I literally just got off the phone and I heard you say that you are now perhaps more convinced about the Urkesh story than I am.
Yeah, I mean, like you always remain healthily skeptical, and I usually just leap from model to model. If I'm 60-40, that Urkesh is what means. It's just simpler.
I would say I'm actually 70-30 at least on
Nice.
that. Because there's more than just the geography that supports it. I think I told you that whole thing about the, and I don't, you might know the passage, I don't, but there's in some book there's a statement that the Israelites came from Amorites and Hittites. That was their original makeup.
Right.
And that fits this Urkesh story from what I've been able to find as well.
Every time you say that, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to finish up and just say that. So there's kind of multiple pieces of evidence rather than just saying, oh, Sumeria is too far away to be Ur of the Chaldees, that kind of thing.
Well, every time you mention that, I always try to look up the Amorites and the Hittites, or what are the two groups you said?
As it's stated in the scripture book, I don't remember which one it is. I'd have to kind of revisit to find that information again. It says that something to the effect of like your forefathers come from Amorites and Hittites. And Amorites is fairly straightforward. Most people think that since Amorites were the dominant ethnic group in the Middle East during the period of Abraham, that's not far-fetched. The Hittite one is kind of the outlier there. But I think I said this before, the Hurrians and the Hittites were often equated with each other. So culturally, and they probably mixed genetically too, but they were both Indo-European groups as opposed to Semites. And they, Urkesh was a Hurrian city that around the supposed time of Abraham was a vassal state to the Amorite kingdom of Mari, which was further down the Euphrates. So the way I see it, Teru, who might be Terah,
right,
was an Amorite that was sent by the king Zimri Lim of Mari to be essentially the governor of Urkesh once the Amorites took it over. And not too far-fetched that he may have married a Hurrian princess there.
Right.
So that union of Teru and his wife, and I've actually found her name somewhere, but I kind of ran out of time to keep poking at it. I'll revisit it. It starts with an A, I think, but it'd be interesting to see can that her name be a Hurrian name? I don't know.
Right. So Terah. Yeah, it doesn't list the wife's name. I see your point there.
I did. If you poke around on the net, you can find some other references as to what her name is. I don't remember where it comes from or anything like that, but
yeah. When I said it, I just meant I've been kind of going back to this wiki article. So
yeah,
Nahor,
they don't show the wives.
They do sometimes, or let's see, like here, yeah. But you're right. So Terah, Nahor, Serug, Ru, Peleg, Eber, they trace it back to Shem.
Yeah, that would be the Amorite side because they're Semitic, right?
Right.
That makes sense because this is a patrilineal tree.
Right.
And so if if Teru, as I'm making a case for, was an Amorite, that would fit right in with this, really.
Oh, okay. So the Amorites are from the Shem side. There's Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Yeah, I mean, this shows that, right? And their Semitic comes from Shem, so
Okay.
and the Amorites are believed to be Semitic people.
Okay.
So yeah, that all fits. It's just that they're not showing you the mothers.
Right.
And remember, follow the wives.
Yeah, I know. I like it. Yep. Yep. Good call. I see your point, and that works. So I don't think we have. I pretty much. I think Urkesh works as a working thesis. I have not come across anything where it would cause any kind of upheaval to the picture
Right.
I've got so far.
There's actually a lot of scholars, from what I could tell, that do accept this now.
Did you catch the part where I told I told Pythagi that I had a Reformed Theological Seminary professor listen to me say that, and he didn't correct me.
Oh, really?
Could've,
Just recently, you mean?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
getting my once a year at bat, and I was talking about the capture of Lot.
Well, I think the key to that is that what you just said a minute ago, it doesn't upset the apple cart, so he doesn't really have a reason to complain.
Right. Did you see this? Have you come across openbible.info that Pythagi brought?
No.
This is.
I don't think so. Anyway.
Are you able to see the screen that I'm sharing?
Currently, it's showing the wiki family tree still.
Let me change this tab. So I clicked on Genesis chapter 24, and all the important spots are clicked on.
That's a neat feature.
Yeah. So this is now my new favorite website, openbible.info.
Huh.
So that's something to.
Yeah, but I wonder if some of the stuff that we've discussed that's a little bit controversial probably doesn't show up in this. Like if you were to click on Sodom and Gomorrah, would it show that town that we talked about that got melted by the meteor strike?
Which chapter was Sodom and Gomorrah? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Sodom. Chapter 19.
My guess is this data set would be constructed from a very, very conventional interpretation.
Yeah, probably. All right, so let's look at chapter 19 and see what it shows. How do you get back? Geocoding, Genesis 19. It's got 5 places. All right, let's take a look. So it's got Zoar down there. It's got Gomorrah and Sodom down here.
Yeah. That city that they, found the asteroid type stuff was on the very northern end of the Red Sea or the Dead Sea.
So up here.
Yeah, up by where those 2 markers are that you can see.
Yeah. Like here. Oh, they've got it as possible.
Okay.
Interesting.
So they're not wedded to the conventional.
Let me see if I click on it. Region south of Lisan. Why don't they list it? I'm confused. So tap to highlight the map. Let's see. So if I click on here, 6 possible identifications for Valley of Siddim. All right, so now let me click on Sodom. It says 5 possible places. That's kind of cool.
Well, there should be 7 possible places, but I guess it won't fit on the map because San Francisco is a good candidate.
Good one. So yeah, they've got the conventional and then up by where you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, this looks like a useful reference.
I put the link in the chat, openbible.info.
Okay. Yeah, I'll bookmark that in a minute.
So some discussion questions were I'm assuming I didn't prove my point, and I don't think it's strong proof, but Isaac was showing off.
I missed the context as far as like what event he was showing off at.
For when Rebecca arrives in town.
Oh, when they brought her back from Haran?
Yes.
Where were they living at that time that they brought her back to?
He was in Bir Shahai Leroy or whatever it's called, but he made a short trip back to town. Let me check again where he went back to.
Broadly in the Negev, in the
Right.
south of Israel.
I saw something a while back, just a random YouTube thing where there's a well down in the Negev that's called Abraham's Well.
Hmm.
Oh, and it was Beersheba or something like that.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Except the problem is that in the show they showed that in that same area there were two different candidates for Abraham's Well, and they couldn't really tell which one was the right one.
Well, yeah, so he was coming back to, I guess it's going to be Mamre, but I think that's a little too far north. It just says Isaac came back from a journey. So I think we'd have to like use some discernment and actually go read, let's see, before the servant left. It's going to be wherever they left from.
No, I felt it's, or maybe it was a footnote.
Oh, you found it?
It's in there. Yeah, it says later on, as Isaac, this is verse 62, as Isaac was returning one evening from Be'er Lahai Roy.
Oh, returning
in parents, he had been living in the Negev.
Right.
Yeah.
How is the last syllable of that spelled, Thaggy?
He was returning
back from Beer Lahoy
like
Roy.
Right. He had been down there. And the footnote says he says that the name of this Be'er, she, whatever, is the well of the living one who looks after me, which is the well where the angel comforted Hagar when she ran off into the desert.
Oh, okay.
This is where she had run. This is where she had run off to, and
so this is where you go when Abraham's annoying you.
Do you guys think that the Negev might have been a lot wetter 4,000 years ago?
Well, I was going to say that, and we had suspected it was officially part of Egypt back then.
Mm-hmm. So when I was watching that show, when I was watching that show, you know, they're showing it today, and it's very, very dry there, and you're like, how could these people live here then?
Right.
So it's like, God, it had to be wetter back then.
A little more survivable. I've heard that it might have been like over irrigated or over farmed or something.
Yeah, where were they getting the water to irrigate it, though? Were the wells prolific enough to do that, or how?
Yeah, I never could figure that out. So were you here for the Bill Donahue is on a beach in Kauai. That sounds really good. So it's
that's the
2 in the afternoon.
That's the island that Larry Ellison and Mark Zuckerberg own, if I remember correctly.
I've met Larry Ellison.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he pretty cool? Down to earth at all?
Yeah, he really seemed pretty cool. We were hanging out in Steve Jobs' apartment. I wish I could say I had any reason to be there, but my wife was invited to a party there, and she got a +1. So Larry had been studying how they use like some of his tools in the lab at Rockefeller, and he was kind of in everybody's hair a lot. And so, as a thank you, after a couple weeks of like basically shadowing 10 or 12 lab rats, he's like, "Come up, we're having a party." So that's how that happened.
Nice. What year would that have been around?
Late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs was living in an apartment?
Well, Steve Jobs probably has a billion places. This was a really nice apartment on the west side of Central Park.
Oh, in New York.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking in the Bay Area.
No, this was in New York, yeah. I mean, Steve Jobs wasn't there, so I didn't meet him. But it was a pretty nice apartment.
Well, what's interesting about Ellison is out of all of the Silicon Valley oligarchs, almost all of them are assholes.
Right.
But Ellison, he's kind of in that gray area where he doesn't seem as bad as the rest of them.
Yeah, he seemed kind of cool. Mostly, I mean, there was an air of him holding court. Like everybody wanted to hear what he was saying. And so it was kind of like a lot of people listening to him. And he kind of got tired of that. So he kind of wandered off and tried to escape a little bit. But yeah, he was really polite and it was fun.
I think he was at there's that famous picture of Obama's trip to Silicon Valley to meet with all of these guys.
Mhm.
You remember that picture?
I
And they're at some fancy restaurant and they're all sitting around a table and they're like toasting each other. I have that picture on my Pilled page, because I have crossed paths with one of the people in it and I'm pissed off about it. But
Are you talking about this one? Oh wait, let me share this tab then.
yeah, the one in the upper left.
Right.
Yeah, the version I have has the people labeled as to who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But Larry Ellison is in this picture, if I remember correctly. I think he's
right here.
Yeah, and that guy sitting to his left, our left.
Oh, yeah.
That's John Doerr, who is big time venture capitalist, and he's the one that I'm mad at.
Got it. Interesting.
Oh, and you know who the guy is at the corner, the end corner, two to the right of Ellison?
Oh, this way?
Yeah.
Who's that?
That is the president of Stanford University.
Ah.
His last name's Hennessy. I forget what his first name is.
Crazy.
And you know who the guy is on the far left?
Don't remember.
Eric Schmidt.
Ah, right. Interesting. Well, quick question on sort of the study questions that I brought. The only one I want to repeat, because the rest are just tiny. Did the Harans, the Rebecca's family, did they know, like, how did they know? I don't know if you heard this part.
Was Rebecca a Hurrian?
Well, she was living in Haran.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Haran, not Urkesh.
Right.
Could go either way, maybe, but I'd be safer to assume that she was probably an Amorite or something.
Yeah, but you remember the Hurrians and the Hittites might be the same, as you have pointed out. Not the Amorites, but the Hittites.
Yeah. it was Rebecca related to Abraham's family at all? Do they know? Was she a cousin or
Oh yeah,
anything like that?
let's do the tree. This thing is fascinating, and I've tried to carefully. I'm not an expert. Um, I believe everything we're about to see in this family tree is legal according to the Bible.
That means no sisters or mothers, but anything else goes.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
So here's Terah and his kids, Haran, Nahor, Hagar, Abraham, Sarah. So here's Abraham. So his
I'm not seeing it yet.
thank you. So here's Abraham. His brother Nahor.
Ooh, look at that. It shows Sarah as being his sister, but we know she was a half sister, right?
Right.
And that's
But-
legal.
Right. But they both come from the same father. I don't think it's legal if they came from the same mother. I forgot where I picked that up, but I'm pretty sure I picked that up. At least
What if they came from the same mother or different fathers? Is that still legal?
I
'Cause
think
they're
that's still
half
dangerous.
siblings? Really?
I can't find the proof of it, but I remember seeing somewhere somebody saying that's more biologically risky. A little fringy, maybe. But
I
went
don't know.
I went to try to find it again, and I have not been able to find it.
Oh, there's
again,
Rebecca.
Yep.
Yeah, she's a cousin.
Right. So she's coming from Bethuel, and Bethuel's mom and dad are both in the line. See how, Milcah comes through here.
So
Nahor.
she's like a second cousin or something.
Yep. And then later, is this alive? Says Everett Home. Later, you'll see that their son, Jacob, goes and gets Rachel and Leah, which is a direct cousin.
Yeah.
So it's some pure bloodline going on here,
Sure is.
which
More-
sounds
more than-
familiar to the Duppy Files, does it not?
Yeah.
And these are my heroes. Right? The heroes of the faith, they're called, like in Hebrews,
Well, I think there's an argument to be made that Abraham is probably in the top 5 of most influential people in history, right?
right. I say it not thinking that I'm going to change my mind, just saying it has to be grappled with that the moves we like to make fun of Cavendish doing, Abraham's doing.
Yeah, but by the time that Cavendishes came around, they weren't doing anything closer than distant cousins.
Right.
But they were doing some awful young ones, if you remember.
Right. Well, and I always like to point out, Paul says once the lineage is accomplished, and Paul would have been a walking encyclopedia of this lineage because he studied under Gamaliel, who studied, was just primo. But he says, stop worrying about genealogies. He's like, just done. Just, you're done. So whatever purpose he thought it served, he's saying it's done. We got what we, basically like what the, the Jesus bloodline. And I forgot who you said's theory was that he was a really pure king bloodline.
Ralph Ellis.
Ralph Ellis. So basically, I think Ralph Ellis and Paul, the apostle, kind of agree.
Yeah. Yeah, except Paul's take on it is different from Ellis's in that Ellis
Yeah.
basically says that all these other really famous rulers from the past contributed to this bloodline as well, like Cleopatra and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Antony.
I haven't heard anything so far in the bloodline discussions that you've brought in that I think clash with what I've been picking up so far. I'm only up to Jacob now. Or I'm not even up to Jacob. I'm just up to Isaac.
The big clash is going to be that in Ellis's interpretation, these people were Egyptians.
Well, Moses was raised as an Egyptian.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they started out, they weren't Egyptians until Abraham moved down there. But then they became pharaohs at various times. I'm thinking there's a chance that the 15th and 16th dynasties were the Hyksos, these guys.
Yep.
Then they got kicked out. And then Joseph came back and married into the 18th dynasty. Or his daughter married into the 18th dynasty. And so the last half of the 18th dynasty, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, and possibly the 22nd were all these people. And then they somehow got kicked out or left Egypt and went to Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not excluding that they didn't have family lines in Canaan before that, but
let me say goodnight to the Texan real quick. He popped in the chat. Good to see you, the Texan. All right, please go ahead.
Bye, Haas. So by 800 BC, they were exclusively in Jerusalem, or maybe 700 BC. And that is pretty close in line with the earliest evidence archaeologically that Jerusalem was a major city.
Mm-hmm.
But that conflicts with the literal interpretation of the Bible big time. So a lot of people aren't going to like it.
Well, we're going to start.
Or actually, I won't say literal. I mean conventional.
Interesting. Yeah, because, I'm trying to go through this thing as literal as I possibly can muster. And we'll be covering that. Like, at this rate, we're probably looking at finishing out Genesis probably in about 40 to 50 weeks. So we'll get to some of this stuff in the next, several months and then chug through that. Should be good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Because the narrative is a little different paced, I've been able to hit 15 to 20 verses every week now. So it might speed up.
So how long before you think you would get to the Judges period?
Probably going to go left to right. Let's see how. I have to get through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and then we'll be.
Is all the material in those books pre Judges? I didn't mean the book of the Judges. I meant the period. Yeah.
I think the Judges would be after they've. Well, so those first 5 books are Moses and Aaron, but then right after that you'll hit the Judges, because after Aaron is the Judges, I think.
Okay. That's the reason I brought that up, is just that I think that there's some very interesting stuff to be dug out of that period, but I don't have a very good grasp of it.
So at this rate, I think we're talking about the year 2026.
Okay. Well,
but you never know. I might be able to speed this thing up as we go. The style of the writing changes, and it kind of changes the speed.
Well, that fits in with the time that Red Pill 78 will be a black man.
I
Did
have
you see
not
that
watched.
meme?
No.
Oh man, it was
Is he
funny.
getting darker and darker?
Yeah, well, it's like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, somebody came out with a meme that I just stumbled across that it showed a picture of Zach from 2019, I think, and
Yeah.
he's broadcasting from Michigan or wherever he was. And, he's got white pasty face. And then next to it is Zach in 2023, now that he's been in Florida with this deep, dark tan. And then they put on the right side 2026 and Zach is a black
Nice.
man.
That's awesome. Well, that's pretty cool. So I forgot what that question was. I think you answered it. It was no, did we even talk about this? So there's a hint a hint in the text. I don't know if you were here for this part. There's a hint in the text where they were praying that the enemies would be vanquished by Rebecca's offspring. And then
Which enemy were they talking about? Any enemy in particular, or just saying, "Oh, your future enemies"?
that's kind of what Pythagi was wondering or bringing up. He's like, that's just what you say.
Yeah.
Let me check the text again. Genesis 24. NAS. It says, "May your descendants possess the gate of those who hate them." So it could be kind of generic, like, like Pythagi was saying, "May you crush the enemy, see them driven before you,
Yeah.
and hear the
Conan.
lamentations of the women."
Yeah. I guess the gate was very, very symbolic to those people. If you think about it.
It's like town square. It's the heart of the commerce.
I've seen some stuff where they talk about gates as being very mystical too.
Oh, sure. I love that. I'm all about that.
Yeah, in a way that other people think might be kind of like portals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Listen, the movie Stargate is probably some of the best disclosure we've ever had.
There's definitely some disclosure in there. Did they come from another dimension and travel? Galaxy scale travel, all that stuff. I don't know about that. That certainly adds to the entertainment value of it.
Sure.
But I certainly think the significance of Egyptian rulers on primitive peoples, I think that's pretty significant, at least the stuff I've seen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've talked about this, but it's been a little while. They could just be, they think so differently that they just become like other, practically alien.
That's my take on it. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that they don't really have to be alien. If they think alien to us, they might as well be.
Right. That's close to some of the woo solution I've heard other people say, which is like, hey, I'm not saying I believe this. We just need to understand that this is what they believe.
Right. That's entirely how I approach it.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of have to, because if I went woo with my stuff, it would literally never end.
Right.
So
that's fair.
I have to put boundaries on it.
Hey, like reproducible, testable, hypothesizable scientific method. That's a good boundary.
Yeah, as long as you can trust the data.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Where'd
where
Thaggy go? He's on mute.
Peggy's so quiet.
I'm just researching. I'm seeing if I can find anything interesting to bring up.
Oh.
Nice.
So Haran is possibly a Hittite capital. Would that make sense?
I know that after the Abraham period, or at least my working hypothesis of the Abraham period, that the Hittites did control that area, so it was very well could have been a provincial capital for the Hittite Empire for a couple hundred years here and there. But I think that would be after the period that I've been talking about. But Haran is a really, really, really important and interesting city through thousands of years. I mean, it was revered by the Assyrians. It was like their second capital when they controlled all of Mesopotamia. It was like their second capital, and they had separate temples there dedicated to I think the moon goddess Sin, Sin. I'm sure you've seen that before. Whereas, over in Babylon or whatever, they're what people would normally think of their capital, or Nineveh or whatever, they were worshiping Marduk or Asher or something like that. But Haran somehow, through a lot of these different empires that have controlled it, had a special status. And I think it was religious. And the weirdest one is that all the way up into the Islamic age, Haran was kind of religiously autonomous, believe it or not. We normally think that the Muslims would force their religion on everybody. That even though they controlled Haran, they left the religion, the old pagan religions that were practiced in Iran, they left it alone all the way up until like 1000 AD or something like that. So there's something really, really significant about Haran that we don't understand quite yet.
Nice.
And remember, it's very close to Göbekli Tepe. I can't get that out of my head either.
Yeah.
As a student of Duppy, I was going to say it if you didn't.
Yeah, the conversation was kind of headed that way.
Yes.
But that's just one, I guess the significance of Göbekli Tepe was it's the oldest temple or sacred ground that they've, but there were other settlements as equally important and equally of scale that had some of the same inscriptions, the same T-shaped kind of post and lantel shape. Like these things are all over.
Yeah,
Turkey.
they've found like at least 20 of them by now, and they're finding more all the time in that southeast Turkey area. There's Karahan Tepe and a whole bunch of other tepes and things like that, and they're all kind of, from what I can tell, they do show similar cultural artifacts and carvings and symbolism and stuff like that. I saw a show that Ralph Ellis was on with a guy that kind of specializes in the tepes and whatnot, and he was debating this guy. He thought that Göbekli Tepe in particular might be actually a necropolis. In other words, a city for the dead. And so there's like all these little rooms there that they found. And he thinks that what they did was they put the bodies in there and let them desiccate or rot and come back later and pick up the bones. That's why they've never found any actual human remains at these sites, is that they all got collected and put in ossuaries or whatever and taken somewhere else. That's certainly very debatable. There's other groups that are finding astronomical alignments in those places, and so it's still very much up for grabs what they really were.
So what is the consensus as far as what culture is this that we're dealing with all the teppies? What would you call that?
I don't think anybody knows. They just, call them the ancient Turkians or something. I don't know. Turks.
Would this be okay? Would it be like the Aryans, that mythical Aryans that came down the Caucasus?
Well, this predates the Aryans by 4,000 years at least. It predates the Indo-Europeans by that much. So they don't really know who these people were from what I've seen.
Hmm. I guess that's what makes it exciting.
It is. It is.
How close to Anatolia area is Göbekli Tepe?
It's in Anatolia. Well,
It's
it's
in.
on the part that adjoins Syria, but
Yeah, it's very southeast corner of Turkey.
Right. So it's probably not Laodicea. I was just trying to think if one of the
Uh,
7 churches
Can you
would
put up a
map.
map?
Let me
I
find
don't recall exactly where
I
those
doubt it.
designations are.
Those churches, yeah, they're all coastal. They're all part of the ancient Greek world.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
Laodicea was a little inland. I don't know. But yeah, oh, I see. Yes, when you zoom out enough it's coastal.
Yeah.
Here, let me show you the map.
What's interesting, something that just occurred to me, in the transition from the Persian Empire royalty to the Greeks, once Alexander messed them up, they married each other's princesses kind of thing. And that name, Laodice, or Laodice, was a name of a number of those queens.
So it's like right about here
Leo-
if you can see my mouse.
Laodice?
Yeah. Yeah, Laodice. I have no idea how that's pronounced. But it was definitely a female name during the Greek empires, the descendants of Alexander the Great. But Göbekli Tepe was almost off the edge of that map that you had up,
Let me go back to that.
G. Ross.
So kind of over here.
I can't see it yet.
Oh, I'm not sharing that page. Yep. So over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so other side of Turkey. So Everett Holmes said the gate back then was a rediscovered technology. I can't figure that out. I've been staring at that in the chat. I'm like, what?
Is he alluding to Atlantean, sort of?
Maybe. If that's the case, then I get it. I wasn't sure. Anyway. So I'm trying to find my flight back. I'm coming back from Florida. Speaking of places Middle East, you know how that's all in Florida now. I come back on the 28th, pretty late in the day, so I don't know if I'll be able to do a show on the 28th. I'll post something. I'm doing a show Friday, the 5:30, as usual, but not the Sunday one. And I don't know if I'll be back in time on the 28th.
You going to Disney again?
Of course. We got to see Tron the Ride. Haven't done that one yet. We're going to also stop by Universal. It's been a while.
You should just move to Florida.
I really, really should. I think when my kid's done with high school, I pretty much will. It would save me a lot of miles on the tires. We're flying this time, though.
I haven't been on a flight in 10 years. It's just
It's obnoxious.
no desire to cater to the airlines these days.
Yeah, it's. I think I've been on one flight in the last like 4 years, 3 years. Used to fly all the time. I don't like it.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I used to have to fly red eyes once a week for 3 years.
Ah, brutal.
Yeah.
You probably got good at the pillow around the neck.
Well, the flights weren't that long. They were day trips going from Oklahoma to Houston for business. But you'd have to take a red eye so that you could get to the office of the company you're visiting at a reasonable time to get the work done.
Yeah.
And then you go out for dinner and end up taking the very last Southwest flight back at 11 p.m., get home after midnight, and oh man, that's a long day.
Yeah. That's a game for the young.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
The cool thing was, at that time, I lived 8 minutes from the airport.
Ooh, nice.
That came in handy in the mornings.
What years was that?
That would have been late 90s.
Oh, back when you could like get to the airport half hour before your flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I miss those days.
I do too. And what was even better was that it literally took you 1 minute to make a reservation online.
Ooh, yeah.
Expedia. I don't even. No, this is before Expedia. Just go direct to the Southwest.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was really cool. Southwest used to, instead of like, I guess they kept track of your miles, but once you hit a certain threshold, they would send you a voucher for a free flight. I don't remember how many miles it was, but they'd send you a voucher. Well, back then it was like, when you go on vacation, you didn't want to go places that Southwest flew.
Right.
So I had no use for those vouchers. And so somebody at the office found a guy that would buy those vouchers on the black market for like $300 a piece or something like that. So yeah, we just sell them to that guy and take the cash.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's too good to last though. That lasted about 2 years.
Yeah. We used to have a system. This is not as good as that story, but very few entrees to this story, so I'm going to squeeze it in. I think I can talk about this because it's been blown to smithereens and nobody can do it anymore, and DC Comics doesn't even exist in New York anymore. But most employees, depending on your rank, you'd get a stack of DCs every week, and you could also, depending on your office that you held, you could get a stack of the Marvels as well. Competitive analysis. And DC and Marvel would basically hand each other a boatload of each other's print runs. So every week, right at my office door would be a stack of DCs and a stack of Marvels. Well, you don't read them all. You don't keep them all. So, I'm going down to Hanley's. You want me to turn in yours for your credit? So Hanley's was a comic book store downtown. And so you would take whatever you didn't keep and you would just turn it in for pennies on the dollar, but store credit. So you could then go to Hanley's pretty much every time there was an awesome $200 statue you wanted, you could just go get it because you had enough credit. And then one day, I forget what her name was, but she was girlfriends with one of the bullpen artists, which side note about those in a sec. And she just right in front of the executive vice president said, Hanley's, that thing where we go down to the thing and the thing. And he just looked at her, and I'm probably paraphrasing the story, but just to give you the gist of it, he's like, well, now that you said that out loud to me, you used to do that All of ours ride was just blown that day.
They blew your cover.
Yeah, because you said
Yeah.
right in front of the big cheese,
Yeah.
you know, that thing we do, like,
Yeah.
didn't have the discretion to understand it was not, you know.
I think what ruined ours was that Southwest stopped sending out the vouchers and they
Yeah,
went with the more
probably.
conventional mileage program and a card and all that stuff. But you just reminded me of another story you might like because it has to do with comics also. Now, I've never been a comics guy. I know very little about them. However, you're probably familiar with Spawn,
Oh, yeah.
that particular comic, right?
Yes.
And it was a comic before they turned it into a movie, if I
Mhm.
remember correctly. Well, the guy that was responsible for that was a guy named Todd McFarlane.
Right.
Does
Yeah.
that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
I used to work with his brother,
Nice.
and he used to tell us all this crazy shit that his brother was doing because he was a multimillionaire by then,
Right.
including when Mark McGwire broke the home run record that would have been like 98.
Mm-hmm.
Todd McFarlane spent $3 million to buy the ball. And then 4 years later, Barry Bonds breaks the record.
Right.
I wonder what happened to the value of that ball. But here's the part that's really funny. So Todd McFarlane, the brother of the guy I work with, started branching out into making little figurine statues, like
Mm-hmm.
what do they call those? Play action figures or whatever.
Action figures. Yeah.
Action figures, yeah. And so his brother came by my office one day and it's like showing me this catalog of these things that his brother was now into. And one of them was an Ozzy Osbourne superhero statue. And I was like,
Nice.
this is so absurd. I have to get this. So
Nice.
I don't remember if I had to pay for it or he just gave it to me. I don't remember if I said, I want one of those. And the reason I wanted it was Ozzy, but like all freaking Superman buff, wearing a cape and all this stuff with this crazy expression on his face, eating a bat.
Nice.
And there actually was, like, it came with a couple of little bats that went with it. But there was actually a little head of a bat that you could put in his mouth.
Oh, how cute.
And I think I still have it out in the garage somewhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the old world I was part of in the 90s. I can't remember if I ever met Todd McFarlane. I probably did not.
You might have. I was in a, I mean, I don't know much about that whole world, but I remember getting the impression that Todd McFarlane got around. He was kind of ubiquitous in that world.
For sure. Yeah. I just don't remember if I ever met him. I'm trying to remember what he looks like.
He's Canadian.
Yeah, I read a lot of the Spawn comic books. A ton. Ooh, I got an answer about the flights. They land at 9:24. So I will try.
Boy, you'd have to hoof it.
Yeah, I'll probably get home around right at 11. Maybe discretion says I should just not have a show that week. I'll probably be tired.
Audience will still be here.
Yeah, I know. It's a diehard crew.
So Thaggy was looking something up.
Haran.
Now I'm looking for a gift.
So while you're looking for that gift, let me tell you guys about the bullpen artists. And Todd McFarlane was, I believe he wrote and penciled his comic books, if I remember right. So he was an artist and a writer, which is not unheard of. Let's see. Todd McFarlane. Canadian artist. Yeah, he's a writer and an artist. So these bullpen guys, in New York, they made not the highest of salaries. Their job was to sit there 40 hours a week correcting art as it was going through the system. And that means they had to be able to do any face, any arms, any hands, any pose, any character, anything from any artist. So they were, by argument, by the time they got up to speed, they were as good as all the best artists. And I knew a few of them, and they made beautiful art. And some of them would escape and like become known, but it was so hard to break out of the bullpen because you were seen as just the grunt. So anyway, that's the bullpen.
It would have been a fun job.
It was really cool. They would usually work there about 2 or 3 years and then go off and do the next thing because there was a little bit of a burnout too because they grinded you. You had to work really hard, really fast. That's the other thing is they were fast. We got a thing from Duppy a minute ago. Oh no, I thought I saw something in the chat. I figured it was the gift that Duppy's looking at, or that. I'm turning into. Who was it that kept mixing you guys? Anyway, I'm turning into that person.
P. Duppy.
P. Duppy. Yeah, I don't know what my problem is. I've been getting really good sleep for 3 nights in a row, 4 nights in a row, but I'm super tired. I am a CPAP user. I'm a sleep apnea patient. It's all the numbers say I'm sleeping fine, but I don't know. I'm exhausted.
Sometimes it's just mental overload.
Oh, I got plenty of that.
I find that sometimes when I'm doing this research stuff and I latch onto something, I almost latch onto it too hard and I can't go to sleep because my brain is still clicking away.
Yep.